Stand up and apologize for embarrassing your sister. My mother snapped at our family company's anniversary dinner. My sister had taken credit for the contract I closed. The entire family laughed. I calmly said, of course. By 8:10 a.m., my office was empty. Then the company attorney entered the boardroom holding a folder that made my sister drop her new Titl badge. The brass compass in the lobby case had a thumbprint on the glass. Someone had polished every other panel for Mercer & Associates' 25th anniversary dinner, but that thumbprint still blurred my father's initials. Behind me, the ballroom doors stood open to clinking glasses, white linen, and 43 employees ready to applaud whatever version of the truth my mother planned to serve. Keith Mercer had carried that compass on his first survey job at 24. He used to leave it on his desk with the brass lid open. After he died, my mother moved it to the lobby and called it part of the firm's history. I asked for it once. She said it belonged to the company, not to me. The waiter touched my elbow and asked if I wanted red or white. "Water is fine," I said. The room smelled like roasted meat and lemon polish. Patience Odom sat with the drafting team, shoulders tight, already reading the room the way other people read weather. Harper arrived 8 minutes late and still managed to look like the room had been waiting on her. Cream suit, new hair. New Titl badge clipped to a gold lanyard she had started wearing around the office 2 weeks earlier, even though no one had officially announced anything. She kissed my mother on the cheek before she sat down. Francine squeezed her hand and held it a second too long. That was the first real sign. The second came when the screen behind the podium changed from old project photos to a slide with my sister's face on it. Merger of Legacy and Vision, it said. Below that, in smaller letters, Harper Mercer Knox, Managing Director. Forks kept moving for another 2 seconds before people realized they were supposed to clap. Then the room filled with it. Hands, smiles, chair legs scraping on the carpet. Harper stood when my mother gestured for her too, one hand at her chest like the whole thing had surprised her. It had not surprised her. Neither had the next part. My mother stepped to the microphone with the same expression she used at funerals, charity luncheons, and bank meetings. Controlled sorrow could take a woman very far in business if she learned to wear it as authority. Keith built this firm with discipline, she said, but a firm does not reach 25 years on technical skill alone. It takes relationships. Trust, vision, the Green River Municipal Bridge contract proved that. Harper saw the opening, built the relationship, and closed a $3.4 million opportunity that changes the next 5 years for this company. Applause again. 3 tables away, one of the municipal clients glanced toward me and then away. Patience lowered her eyes to her plate. The senior project coordinator lifted his water glass, realized his hand was shaking, and set it back down without taking a sip. Because everyone in that room who mattered knew one thing Harper did not know how to do. Harper could not close that contract. She could flirt with a room, memorize names, and talk about growth in the soft, expensive language people use when they have never had to calculate whether steel can carry load. But Mercer & Associates did structural public work. Public work does not move because a CEO's daughter wore a nice jacket to lunch. Public work moves because a licensed engineer signs a packet that says the thing being built will stand when winter hits it sideways. That engineer was me. I won the Green River Bridge contract in June. I handled every revision, solved the floodplain issue, cut 5 weeks out of review, and stamped the structural package with my PE seal. The fee schedule was worth $3.4 million. To the firm, it was revenue. To me, it was 6 lost weekends, 1 canceled trip, and a summer of waking at 3 to recheck numbers. Harper took a bow for it between the salad and the main course. The board advisor on my right leaned toward me and whispered, "Quite a night for your family." "Looks that way," I said. Harper started her thank you speech before the applause had fully settled. "I just want to say," She began, smiling at the client table, that business is still people. People choose people before they choose firms. We can be as smart as we want, but if you don't know how to walk into a room and make them trust you, none of the rest matters. A few people laughed. Harper liked to phrase her contempt as a motivational thought. She turned slightly toward me when she said the rest. Some of us build the thing. Some of us build the future around it. My hand tightened on the edge of the tablecloth that was small enough to survive in public, plausible enough, deniable enough, the kind of cut that only counts if the person bleeding says it hurts. Then my mother made it impossible to ignore. One of the clients asked a harmless question about the permit path. Harper answered it wrong, not wildly wrong, just wrong enough that anyone who had touched the project would hear the gap. She mixed up the county review with the municipal submittal and referred to the load package as if it had already been cleared. My face changed. That was all. Not a laugh, not a correction, just one human face forgetting to cooperate. My mother saw it from the podium. "Simone," she said, still holding the microphone, voice light enough to make the room pay even closer attention. "Stand up and apologize for embarrassing your sister." A fork stopped halfway to a mouth at the table near the window. Someone behind me pulled in a breath and did not let it out. My chair scraped back from the carpet. The whole room turned. My mother smiled that brittle hostess smile people mistake for grace until they are the one under it. "She is trying to lead," Francine said. "The least you can do is support her in public." Harper did not tell her to stop. Harper looked down at her wine glass and waited for it the way some people wait for cake. When I did not move fast enough, my mother finished the job. "Simone draws the lines. Harper builds the relationships." That is why Harper is managing director and Simone is still hunched over a drafting table wondering why nobody picks her first, at work or anywhere else. Patience flinched like the sentence had crossed the room and hit her too. One of the city clients lowered his eyes to his napkin. Harper's husband started to rise out of his chair, then sat back down when Harper touched his sleeve without looking at him. That line landed exactly where my mother meant it to land. She did not just call me difficult. She took my work, my quiet, my father's training, my single life, every holiday where I arrived alone, and every family dinner where I answered one question too slowly. And she turned all of it into proof that I was a woman no one chose first. The pain of it was not abstract. It sat low and hard under my ribs. My fingers went numb before my face did. Heat climbed my neck. The table edge pressed into my palm so sharply that when I let go there was a pale line across the skin. Silence in my family had always been treated like defeat. That night it was a decision, because saying what I wanted in that room would have given them exactly what they needed. A difficult daughter, a jealous sister, an engineer who could not handle a business announcement. They had dressed the stage before I walked in. My part was already written. So I stood. The room held still around me, crystal, linen, soft music from hidden speakers. All of it waiting for my humiliation to become the entertainment my mother had purchased with hotel catering and a microphone. "Of course," I said. Every eye stayed on me. "I am sorry," I said, and then I looked directly at Harper. I would never want anyone to confuse credit with competence. It took the room half a second to decide whether that counted as submission. My mother chose first. She lifted her glass. "There we are," she said, as if she had corrected a child. Harper smiled again, thinner now. I sat down. Patience did not look at me. She kept both hands wrapped around her water glass so tightly the tendons showed white against her brown skin. Under the table my legs had gone light and strange, like they belonged to somebody else. The waiter brought the main course. I cut 2 pieces of chicken and swallowed neither of them. If you are new here at Family Secret Tales, remember this: the quiet one at the table is usually the one counting exits. My mother kept talking through dessert. Harper kept accepting praise for a contract she could not explain. Twice, people used the phrase next generation leadership. Once, one of the municipal clients said, "We'll need to have our technical people talk through the next phase soon," and Harper answered, "Absolutely, our team is ready," without once looking toward the table where the actual technical lead was sitting. I left before the coffee service. Outside, the hotel parking lot shimmered with leftover heat. My car was still warm from the afternoon sun. I shut the door, put both hands on the wheel, and did not start the engine. The sentence replayed in full. Hunched over a drafting table. Nobody picks her first. Not because I did not understand it, because I understood it too well. At 3:12 that afternoon, before anyone had changed into anniversary clothes, I had found a printed consulting agreement in the tray outside Francine's office. Technical consultant. Effective October 1. My name at the top. $94,000 a year converted into a contractor rate that would cut me out of bonuses, benefits, authority, and any claim to division leadership. Harper's name listed above mine in the proposed org chart. Managing Director. Structural strategy under executive oversight. They had planned to keep my license and remove my position. At 3:58, sitting alone in my office with the lights off, I filed my resignation with the state board and notified them that as of close of business Friday, I was withdrawing as engineer of record for Mercer and Associates. At 4, the confirmation email hit my inbox. At 6:30, I put on a black dress and went to dinner anyway. So when I told my mother, of course, it was not surrender. It was the sound a bridge makes 1 second before the weight shifts and the old support gives way. The road home was empty. I sat in the car outside my building with both hands on the wheel until the pale line from the tablecloth seam faded from my palm. I almost turned around and walked back into that ballroom. Then my phone lit with the 3:58 resignation confirmation and the urge passed. Sleep never came. At 1:17, I reviewed the consulting agreement again. At 2:46, I opened Green River. At 4, I stopped trying to lie to myself about what the dinner meant. Harper taking credit for the bridge contract was not the first theft. It was just the one with linen and witnesses. My father started bringing me to job sites when I was 12, not because I begged. Because I wandered into his home office one Saturday while he was checking old survey notes and asked why he still carried a brass compass when everyone else used digital equipment. He closed my hand around it and said, "Because batteries die. Direction doesn't." Rain hit the truck roof the whole drive out to the site that day. Mud sucked at my boots. Keith stood beside me with his clipboard under one arm and showed me how a line on paper turned into a line in dirt and then into a footing and then into a wall that could outlast the people who paid for it. A Mercer always knows which direction they are facing, he told me. It was one of maybe 5 soft things he ever said out loud. He was not easy. He was exact. He corrected my math in pen. He sent me back to check measurements when he already knew I was right, because he wanted me to trust proof more than reassurance. By the time I earned my license, he stopped introducing me as his daughter on site and started introducing me as the engineer handling the structural review. Harper hated that before she had language for hating it. She was younger, louder, prettier in the way my mother considered useful, and completely uninterested in anything that lived inside a planned set. Harper liked opening parties, polished offices, and the feeling of being received. My mother called it leadership. My father called it charm and said charm was fine as long as somebody else in the room could do math. When Keith died in October of 2021, my mother kept the equity, the accounts, and the office. I kept the work, the license, and a $94,000 salary that should have been closer to $135,000. Harper joined full-time in January 2022 and started renaming herself every few months until people forgot she had no credential at all. 8 months before the anniversary dinner, she walked into a donor breakfast with my 60-page library retrofit study and presented it as her turnaround plan. At the staff meeting afterward, Francine hugged her and praised her for understanding growth. Nobody said my name, not even me. I should have left when they moved my father's compass to the lobby. I know that. But every month I stayed, I told myself I was protecting what he built. Grief can make obedience look noble until the bill comes due. By Saturday morning, the humiliation had cooled into something cleaner. Paper, the backup drive for my certification archive sat in my desk drawer at home. I keep copies of every stamped packet because structural work teaches sequence. What was sent, when, by whom, under whose seal. By 10 that morning, I had Greenfield open on my screen. The first forged stamp looked right until I stopped reading it as mine. My seal lands straight. This one leaned right about 15 degrees. I used dashes in dates. The packet used slashes. Lakeview had the same mistake. That was when the story stopped being humiliation and became crime. A forged PE seal is not office drama. It is liability with my name on it. On page 9 of Greenfield, Harper had also filed a copied load table without adjusting the span. $18,000 to fix-it review if the city caught it early. Much worse if they did not. My jaw locked. The apartment sounded too quiet. I almost called Lionel on Saturday and told him to forget it. Then I looked at the seal again and understood what she was counting on. Blood, silence, my license paying for both. Lionel Beckett answered on the second ring. "Beckett, it's Simone Mercer." A pause, paper shifting. "I had a feeling I'd hear from you this weekend. I have 2 certification packets filed under my PE seal that I did not review or stamp. Greenfield in March, Lakeview in May. Greenfield includes a load table error. The chair on his end creaked. Are you certain? Yes, how? Stamp angle, date format, signature pressure on the scan, and Greenfield contains a calculation mistake Harper wouldn't know enough to catch. Another pause, longer this time. Do not email those around, he said. Do not annotate anything. Do not warn anyone. I will pull originals Monday morning. You represent the company. I represent the company, he said. That is why you called me instead of a random litigator. If this is what you think it is, the company has a fraud problem, a licensing problem, and a disclosure problem. I filed my resignation with the board yesterday. He exhaled once, slowly, before the dinner. Before the dinner. All right. Then Monday is no longer about your position. Monday is about exposure. There is also a consulting agreement with my name on it. Effective October 1st. Do you have a copy? Printed copy. Keep it. Bring it. Anything else? Harper's title badge showed up 2 weeks ago, meaning the announcement was staged before last night. Yes, then say nothing. Pack anything personal you need. Be in the office Monday morning. Let them call the meeting they already planned. That last sentence steadied me more than comfort would have. Let them call the meeting. Harper loved rooms she believed belonged to her. My mother loved making other people speak first so she could decide whose words counted. Lionel understood both of them well enough to use their habits against them. Saturday afternoon turned into proof management. I printed the forged packets, the consulting agreement, my resignation confirmation, the Portland reimbursement log, and the Green River emails showing exactly who had solved what. None of it felt dramatic. Half of real revenge looks like organizing a desk. By Sunday morning, Harper sent the formal calendar invite. Monday 8:00 a.m. leadership alignment. Attendees: Francine Mercer, Harper Mercer Knox, Simone Mercer. Boardroom attached was a glossy PDF called Transition Pathway. The title alone made me laugh once, short and ugly. Harper wrote an email beneath it that said, "I think you are really going to love where Mom landed on this. We all want to free you up to focus on what you do best. What I did best paid their mortgage. What I did best kept public work moving through the city. What I did best was the reason our bond underwriters returned calls. Without my seal, Mercer and Associates could not submit a structural drawing to a municipality, could not certify a completed structural package, and could not responsibly hold itself out as a public structural firm. A family company had spent years treating that fact like an inconvenience they could bully into obedience. Sunday afternoon, I opened the attached PDF and saw the metadata footer at the bottom of the second page. Document created, 0814/2024. 6 weeks before the dinner. They had not humiliated me because the evening went sideways. They had humiliated me because the evening was part of the rollout. Harper needed to look earned. I needed to look subordinate. My mother did not snap in public. She staged in public. If you have been with Family Secret Tales for a while, you know the story changes the moment family hurt needs company paperwork to survive. By 6 Monday morning, the office was still dark. My key card worked one last time. The lobby smelled like toner and stale coffee. The compass still sat in the case under the spotlights, brass lid closed. My father's initials invisible unless you bent close enough to make yourself look suspicious. Inside my office, bankers' boxes waited on the floor. My life fit into less space than it should have. My father's photo, 2 code books, 1 stubborn plant, drafting pens, boots, and the mug Patience gave me that said loads ARE feelings with numbers. At 6:23, Patience appeared in the doorway holding 2 coffees and the expression of a woman who had already guessed the worst. "You beat me in," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She looked at the boxes, then at my desk, then at the empty wall where the city bridge schedule had hung. "So, it's that kind of Monday." Yes. Patience crossed the room and set a cup beside me. No hug, no pity. She had too much respect for me to soften the edges before I asked. "They did it at dinner," she said quietly. "They did." She nodded once, like a woman confirming a calculation she had hoped was wrong. "Your father would have walked out too," she said. "He just would have been louder about it." The words hit lower than I expected. From under her arm she pulled the framed black and white photo my father kept for years. Mud at his boots. Hard hat tipped back. Compass in one hand, rolled plans in the other. "Take this," she said. "They do not deserve to hang it." My throat tightened so fast it hurt. Patience looked around the room once more. "Do they know what happens without your stamp?" "They are about to." Good. That was why she was the anchor and not just an ally. Patience had seen me absorb years of being trimmed down to fit someone else's idea of useful, and she had never once asked me to do it better. At 7:45, my office was empty. The plant sat in the passenger seat of my car. The photo was wrapped in my coat. My PE seal was in my bag. The only thing I left behind was the cheap visitor chair by the bookshelf because Harper hated it and I wanted her to keep hating it without understanding why nothing else remained. The boardroom windows faced east. Morning light came across the long table in pale rectangles. My mother liked to sit at the head. Harper liked the seat beside her because it let her borrow authority without earning any of it. At 7:58, Lionel walked in carrying a dark folder thick enough to hold weight. "You were right," he said without greeting. "Originals match the scans. 2 fraudulent filings under your seal. I also pulled the revision history on the transition memo. August 14th. Thank you for coming." "I wasn't invited," he said. "That may be the first wise choice made in this building all month." He sat 3 chairs down from me, not at the head, not beside me. Counsel always knew where to place a body to change the weather of a room. At 8:10, the door opened. Harper entered first, badge lanyard gleaming against a navy blouse this time, carrying a presentation folder with the company logo embossed in silver. My mother followed with her reading glasses in one hand and the smooth expression of a woman expecting gratitude. Harper stopped when she saw Lionel. "Oh," she said, "I didn't know we were making this formal." Lionel did not answer. Francine recovered faster. "If this is about Simone's concerns, outside counsel isn't necessary for an internal restructuring." "Sit down," Lionel said. That got both of them, not because he raised his voice, but because he didn't. Harper placed her folder on the table and took the seat beside my mother anyway. Francine folded her glasses and laid them on the polished wood with tiny, deliberate precision. Harper smiled toward me in the professional tone she used when she wanted to sound magnanimous. "We wanted to talk through a transition that really honors your strengths," she said. "You've carried a heavy technical load for years. Mom and I think freeing you from personnel and leadership pressure lets you focus on what you do best while I step more fully into market-facing growth." She slid the glossy packet toward me. "Technical consultant," she said. "More flexibility, cleaner structure." Francine joined in before I touched the folder. "This is better for everyone," she said. "Your father's firm is changing. Harper is built for the front of the business. You are built for the back of it. That is not an insult. It is alignment." There it was again. The old family trick: cut you open, then hand you a softer word for the wound. I did not open their packet. "Harper," I said, "which project certifications did you submit while I was at the Portland conference in March?" The air changed first. Then Harper's face did. It was small. A pause. A blink. The quick movement of a mind flipping through lies and finding too many of them. "What?" she asked. "Greenfield Municipal Maintenance Building," I said. "March 14th. Lakeview Retaining Wall Improvements, May 22nd. Which one did you file yourself?" My mother looked from me to Harper. "What is this?" Harper gave a short laugh. "Simone, if this is about admin handling uploads, that is exactly why we need a better structure. I move documents all the time." Lionel opened the folder. The sound of heavy paper on polished wood can be very satisfying when the paper contains someone's end. He laid the first two packets side by side in front of Harper, then two authentic stamped certifications beside them. 4 documents, same firm, same logo, same signature block. Not the same truth. "You do move documents," Lionel said. "The problem is that on March 14th and May 22nd, you moved licensed certifications bearing a forged professional engineer seal." Harper stared at the pages without touching them. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Forged?" Lionel pointed with one finger. "Authentic seal impressions from Miss Mercer land square to the signature block and use a dash-based date format. These 2 packets use a rotated impression and /date format. Greenfield also contains a copied load table not adjusted for span." Harper found her voice by reaching for indignation first. "That is insane." I was trying to keep work moving. Simone was gone. The city needed packets filed. You filed licensed engineering certifications you were not authorized to file under a seal that is not yours, Linnell said. Intent to help is not a defense to fraud. Harper's hand went to her lanyard, thumb rubbing the edge of the new Titl badge like it might still tell her who she was. Her other hand flattened on the table. The color under her makeup changed first, draining from her cheeks and collecting in 2 hard pink spots high on her face. My mother straightened in her chair. "Simone, did you bring counsel into a family matter?" That sentence almost made me laugh. A family matter. $3.4 million of public work. 2 falsified municipal certifications. 1 state license. 1 corporate restructuring memo drafted 6 weeks before the dinner where she ordered me to apologize in front of half the company. That was not a family matter. That was theft dressed for catering. I leaned forward and looked at both of them, not just Harper. "No," I said. "I brought counsel into a fraud problem. Harper took public credit Friday night for a bridge contract she did not close, did not design, and could not explain. You had already drafted a plan to strip my role and keep my seal in the building. Then she used that same seal on 2 city filings while I was out of state. That is forgery. Filing those packets with a municipality under my name is fraud. The Greenfield load table error means she did not just steal a credential. She attached it to work she was not qualified to review. You enabled every step of it. Harper opened her mouth. I kept going. You called me hunched over a drafting table at dinner like my work was a posture problem. That drafting table brought in $1.2 million a year. That drafting table won Green River. That drafting table is the only reason your bond underwriters, your clients, and your insurers ever treated this place like an engineering firm instead of a family office with a logo. You wanted the woman nobody picks first to keep carrying the structure, while you handed the title to someone who can't read a load path without turning it into a branding exercise. Nobody moved. Not Lionel. Not Harper. Not even my mother. Though I saw her lower lip press inward once the way it always did when she realized control had left the room before she had finished speaking. Lionel slid one more document onto the table. This transition memo, he said, tapping the footer, was created August 14th. Friday night's announcement was not reactive. It was part of a planned restructuring. Harper turned to my mother so fast her chair legs scratched the floor. Mom? Francine did not look at her. She was reading the date, August 14. Her glasses were still folded on the table. So she bent closer to see it, and for the first time in my adult life, my mother looked old to me. Not weak, not sorry, just older than the version of herself she performed in public. I let that land before I spoke again. You did not lose your temper at dinner, I said to her. You rehearsed it. You needed me small in front of witnesses before this meeting so the demotion would look natural. Simone, Francine said, and the word came out thin. No, you can use my name correctly for the rest of this. Harper finally grabbed at the first defense she could still hold. It was just the stamp, she said. The engineering was already done. Lionel turned the Greenfield packet toward her and tapped the load table. One error. $18,000 to remediate at review if the city catches it now. More if they don't. That is the sort of mistake licensed professionals are hired to prevent. Harper's fingers slipped on the edge of her badge. She tried again, voice higher. I was trying to help the company. By forging a licensed credential, I said. Her breathing changed, small, fast pulls through the mouth now. Her gaze cut toward the door and back, as if escape had just occurred to her and insulted her by arriving late. Then she made the worst mistake she could still make. She turned to my mother. Mom, say something. Francine said nothing. Silence can be an action when the right person refuses to spend it. Harper looked back at me and tried one last smaller lie. You always do this, she said. You make everything sound bigger and colder than it is. You never understood what clients respond to. People like you always confuse being useful with being important. There it was, the family religion in one sentence. Useful, not important. I let my eyes stay on hers. The woman you called hunched over a drafting table is the only reason this company still had authority on Friday, I said. Useful kept the lights on. Useful got the bridge contract. Useful is what stood between your ambition and a criminal complaint until you decided blood was cheaper than permission. Harper's badge hit the table before it hit the floor. The clip gave first. A bright, hard sound against polished wood. Then the badge skidded, spun once, and slid off the edge to the carpet. She bent to catch it and did not get there in time. When she came back up, one strand of hair had stuck to her lip gloss. Her right hand shook badly enough that she had to press it under the table. Her left shoulder had crept halfway to her ear. She kept swallowing, and nothing changed. That was the collapse. Not one dramatic movie moment. A sequence. Fingers losing grip, color leaving the face. Breath turning shallow. The body understanding the truth before the mouth can negotiate with it. I gave them the rest because they had earned hearing it whole. Friday at 3:58, I filed my resignation with the state board and withdrew as engineer of record for Mercer and Associates effective close of business. This morning, I filed a formal complaint with the engineering board regarding both forged certifications, and counsel is preserving records for any criminal referral that follows. This afternoon, I am notifying the Green River Municipal Project Manager that the PE who designed and stamped the bridge package is no longer with this firm. Without a licensed structural PE on staff, your active public work is exposed, your surety relationship is under review, and your insurer will need to know why falsified filings exist in your records. This is the last thing I do for this company. The last dollar. The last favor. The last time I answer this phone about work you tried to take from me. Nobody interrupted. My mother's throat moved once. "Simone, listen to yourself. This is your family." "No," I said. "This is your business decision. Family was what you used to make me stay quiet." Harper was still staring at the floor where her badge had fallen. I looked at her when I said the next line because she had earned that too. "You forged my stamp on 2 projects. Dad spent 40 years building that license's reputation." The engineering board received my complaint Tuesday. Harper's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing useful came out. My mother found one last move because control is the last language some people forget. "Your father built this company for both of you," she said, voice turning soft now, the public widow voice, the one donors trusted and men twice her size mistook for moral authority. "He would want you to keep this family together." That was her last attempt, not apology, not accountability, legacy as a leash. I stood. The boardroom door opened onto the lobby. Morning staff had started arriving. Phones rang somewhere past the reception desk. A junior coordinator glanced up as I crossed to the display case. My reflection moved over the glass for 1 second beside my father's old compass. Up close, I could see the tiny scratches on the brass lid from years in his pocket. I could also see my own face, washed out and sharpened by fluorescent light, older than it had been Friday, steadier than it had been at dinner. I almost left the compass in the case. Then I remembered my father's hand closing mine around it in the rain when I was 12. Direction does not run on permission. The case was locked, but the display key hung on a brass tag inside the reception drawer because Mercer and Associates loved security only when it protected ego. The receptionist watched me open the drawer, fit the key, and lift the glass. No one told me to stop. The compass was heavier than memory and warmer than I expected. I put it in my bag, closed the case, and walked out of the building with my father's photo under one arm and my license still attached to my own name. Consequences did not arrive as thunder. They arrived on letterhead. Tuesday morning, the bond underwriters froze Mercer and Associates' $225,000 public line and gave Francine 30 days to document a replacement PE. Patience forwarded me the notice after printing it for her. By noon, a recruiter called and asked if I had really left Mercer. When I said yes, he laughed once and said, "No one wants to walk into a firm with a board complaint already breathing on it." Wednesday, Lionel called. "Carrier opened a reservation of rights review on Greenfield," he said. That was the insurer's way of telling my mother they did not enjoy surprises written in forged ink. Thursday turned the professional damage public. A former classmate texted me a screenshot from the state board portal, complaint received, seal misuse alleged, review pending. At a transportation breakfast the next day, a consultant asked Francine whether Harper was still leading Green River. My mother said, "We are in transition." He answered, "That isn't what I heard." The emotional fallout came through Adam Lopez. He called after Harper tried to reassure the city without understanding they had already worked out whose voice mattered. "Are you still the PE on Green River?" he asked. "No, I withdrew Friday." He was quiet for a beat, then said, "If you are not on the project, we will likely rebid." Harper called him again later that day and got the version of the truth she had been avoiding. "We worked with Simone Mercer," he told her. "If Simone Mercer is not attached to the structural package, the city will rebid the work." She hung up before he finished. Patients told me Harper sat in the parking lot afterward with the engine off, then walked back through the lobby and stopped cold in front of the empty display case. My mother's turn came the following week. A courier delivered the board's document request for Greenfield and Lakeview. Patients said Francine signed for it herself, carried it into Keith's office, and stayed in there almost an hour with the lights off. Later, she asked the receptionist whether anyone knew a retired PE willing to consult. The receptionist said, very softly, "I think everyone is waiting to see what the board does." A week after that, patients found her in the same office staring through the glass wall at the shelf where the compass used to sit. The phone rang twice. Then again. My mother let it ring every time. That image should have satisfied me more than it did. People imagine revenge as heat. The real version was colder and more exact. It lived in underwriters, board portals, and a city official saying my name where Harper expected her own. By October 18th, 3 voicemails sat on my phone. Raleigh, Charlotte. A public works consultancy offering lunch and the kind of salary a licensed structural lead should have been making years earlier. I did not call any of them back right away. Restoration is not a sprint the second the villain falls apart. Once the boxes were unpacked, my apartment looked like a life instead of a holding pattern. My father's photo went on the shelf beside my code books. The plant recovered in the window. The Green River notes sat in a folder marked closed because my part in that project was no longer available for theft. The compass stayed on the table for 3 days before I opened it. I had polished the lid with the hem of an old t-shirt, without thinking. Brass catches fingerprints fast. So do family stories. Both look cleaner than they are from across a room. On the 3rd evening, rain tapped against the kitchen window just hard enough to make me think of that site visit when I was 12. I picked up the compass, pressed the latch with my thumb, and turned it over before opening it. There was engraving on the back I had never seen. Not decorative script. My father's block handwriting, shallow and uneven. Probably done by a jeweler copying what he wrote on a scrap of paper. S.M. We'll need this someday. K.M. For a long minute, I just sat there with the brass warm in my hand and the apartment quiet around me. That was the restoration. Not a speech. Not my mother admitting anything. Just proof that my father had seen me clearly before anyone started asking me to shrink for their comfort. If this is why you listen to family secret tales, then you already know the cleanest endings never need applause. Across town, my mother still had the office, the board headaches, the frozen bond relationship, and a daughter whose new title badge had lasted exactly 1 weekend. Harper still had a husband answering more questions than she liked, and a professional record that now included a licensing complaint she could not charm away. Their world still contained my father's name, but not his direction. Mine contained both. The last thing I did that night was open my laptop beside the compass and return the call from Raleigh. When the recruiter asked when I could talk, I looked at my father's initials, then at my own reflected faintly in the dark screen, and said, "Now is fine."